10 years is a long time. In that span of time, I went from being a starry-eyed child with hopes and dreams to a spiteful young man embittered by his experiences. And Skyrim is this happy memory I have. I remember watching the trailer on YouTube over and over and over again for months until the game came out. And when the game did come out, I was up all night with my uncle and brother watching my brother play for hours. This was right before I lost my uncle to schizophrenia. That's what this game means to me. And yet, that was the only time I ever played Skyrim fully through. The previous game, Oblivion, I play every year. And more often than not, when I did play Skyrim, I would just download enough mods to crash the damn thing, play for an hour, then get off. That was my Skyrim experience for the last 10 years. And when Skyrim's 10th anniversary, I decided to play it fully through. This is Skyrim. Of course, by now everyone knows that Skyrim is the simplest game in the series. The Elder Scrolls' rich pen-and-paper-esque stats replaced for simple bars and perks. Its combat being relegated to a pull of the trigger rather than complex algorithms that would be too hard to explain in this video. The magic, enchanting, potion crafting all simplified and reduced to a pale imitation of itself. Every aspect of the Elder Scrolls series has been dumbed down in some way or form compared to the previous game. That being said, it's not all bad. People are going to latch onto their favorite game regardless of if change was for the better, and there are changes to the series staples that make the game better. Like sneaking actually functioning and being a viable build, although it's probably too effective. These changes proved successful, alongside an aggressive marketing campaign meant that Skyrim sold incredibly well. For comparison, Oblivion in the span of 5 years sold 3.5 million copies. Skyrim sold that many copies in 2 days, with it selling 30 million copies in 5 years. It's an understatement to say that Skyrim is easily one of the most recognizable RPGs, and due to its accessibility, it has become a gateway game for a lot of people. And that's where a lot of modern game design focuses on. Accessibility, reaching wider and wider audiences in an effort to move more copies, all while stuffing the game to the brim with things to do in order to make people think they got their money's worth. It's this content over gameplay logic that spawned the open world RPG genre. The RPG elements provide enough depth for seasoned gamers, while they're not overbearing enough for new gamers and players to the series. While the open world factor allows the devs to stuff the world with set pieces, locations, activities, and objects to find in order to keep the player entertained and occupied. A good example of what this looks like is the Far Cry series. All you need to do is go from place to place blowing shit up. You guys remember back when Far Cry 3 came out? That one reviewer said, "It's like Skyrim, but with guns." Never made fun of him for being a moron. Everything I just described points to that being true. It's even got to capture the map mode. It's not like it's a bad thing that Skyrim is an open world RPG instead of an RPG. It can be fun, but it's the kind of fun that's not rewarding. If you really sit back and look at what's going on in Skyrim, nothing is happening. The gameplay in Morrowind and Oblivion have a certain scaling to them, whereas in Skyrim, because the gameplay is simplified, the fun factor from the game mechanics is far more consistent in a bad way. It never reaches the highs and lows that its predecessor does. You never really need enchanted gear because the perk system is your main source of damage scaling. But if you do have enchanted gear, and especially when you make it yourself, you have such an easy time that even the final boss goes down in a couple of hits. Enchanting and smithing is so powerful when you have 100 in both, you don't even need to upgrade your combat skills. This is Skyrim's only source of breaking the game. And it's such a boring way of breaking the game, since chances are you probably have 101 of the combat skills that you don't even need to do this. And if you're doing the stealth archer meta, yeah, you don't either. That being said, the core of a good RPG is its story. The gameplay can be fucking garbage as long as the game makes you feel immersed in the world. And Skyrim doesn't do this. A good example of this is the companion's quest chain. Surely if you're joining the mighty warriors of Yordaskur, they would test your mettle before you were considered among their best. No. After 2 major quests, you have the option to become a werewolf and be in their inner circle. Because all the quests, except for the main quest, and even sometimes the main quest, feel like a storyboard. They never make you feel like the great hero you're supposed to be, and instead, you just feel competent in an incompetent world. The core of the fun in Skyrim as it is in any open world RPG, is exploring. The set pieces in Skyrim are incredible. They're clearly made with love and care. Even Skyrim itself still looks good 10 years later. The soundtrack by Jeremy Soule serenading you through the world as you explore forgotten crypts and caves, fight mighty dragons, or battle for your life against gods. Jeremy Soule hasn't been in anything of late. What happened to him? His soundtracks are my fucking favorite. Guild Wars 2? Dawn of War? Oh. Okay. Skyrim is an enigma to me. On paper, it's a bad game. There's nothing to the gameplay, and its story's bad. Yet at the same time, when I was playing it for the review, I couldn't stop. I was putting in 8-hour days. I was enjoying myself. And at the same time, I'm not clamoring to go through it again without mods. I don't really know what to think about it. It feels like Skyrim could have been a much better game, and yet at the same time, it's not a boring game. And I know I just spent the last 5 minutes trashing it, but I can't bring myself to hate it, no matter how much I try. I wish Skyrim had more meat to its gameplay. It's so hard to enjoy the game when combat consists of just swinging shit until your opponent is dead and not having to worry about stamina, or chugging 30 million potions in an effort to stay alive. 8 out of 10.